His name is week. Is it 5 or 6? I'm already bugging out. And today's poem is Harlem. And yeah, it's an interesting read actually, very short, but packed with meaningful lines. And as ever, poems written in the early 20th, mid 20th century are as relevant as they are today. And much of the history never really goes wiped away. Hello. Much of the history never gets slate clean, and yeah, I would say it's as relevant as it is today. And yeah, let's get into it, and hope you're having a nice week.
Harlem by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode?
Right, let's get into it. And I noticed, by the way, the shadows in my face, but it's a beautiful. I love when sunsets are like this. I'm in a really chill mood, not having the best time, but in a chill mood. Yeah, so from what I've understand, Langston was seen as a sort of champion for the ordinary urban-ish city folk in New York, I think, but just anywhere in typical black American working class family society. And much of the black American intellectuals or the academics sort of, I mean, so far as I know, kind of look down upon him as a sort of reinforcing that stereotype of, the crass black guy that can't really entertain these quote unquote white man thoughts, right? So but he was actually Langston was reinforcing these, flipping it on its head, sort of, let's embrace who we are and let's not downtrod it. But the actual poem Harlem, so far as I know, was okay. Deferred dream. So we have this quote unquote American dream, but is it really for the African American folk? And do we defer it, let it rot like rotten meat? Do we let it dry up like a raisin in the sun? We have all this potential, but we're letting it dry up. But I don't think he's actually talking about the ordinary black person themselves. I think it's in the context, mainly because it's written in the title's called Harlem. I think it was after the Harlem riots, so far as I've read. I may be mistaken here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So I think what he's actually doing is sort of like a protest poem. It's a short, sweet poem about, we have this American dream, but you're not letting us fulfill it. You say, we have all this potential, you're in the land of the free, but we're not giving any opportunities whatsoever to live up. And you're kind of letting our potential wither away like a raisin, or letting it crust like some savory syrup. We're sweet, we have potential, all right, but you're not letting us fulfill it. And this is how I interpret the poem. You can interpret different ways individually, but I think he's making a sort of political point, which is especially in the civil rights era. And allegedly, I'm not too sure, it was sort of this poem that he wrote later inspired and influenced the Martin Luther King's I Have a Speech. Yeah, and to be honest, why I mention it's highly relevant today, it's because political injustice always happens, right? And as much as we like to think we've moved beyond the racism, right? You can still do it in other ways. Like, for example, in the UK, I think the Tories are implementing a voter ID thing, right? Now, on the face of it, that seems, some might say, sensible. Like, if you're going to vote, you need to prove who you are, right? But subtly, that does leave implications, because people who's less wealthy, people which tends to be, ironically enough, from working class, poorer ethnic minority people, but of course there are white English folk who are equally as poor. They can't afford a passport. I mean, and that costs a lot as an ID. So subconsciously, not subtly, you can influence the way demographics vote for you, depending on how you enshrine your policies and sort of sugarcoat it. And I think that's what Langston is saying. You're sugarcoating the American dream when you say, oh yeah, defer this dream we have, but you're not going to let us fulfill it because in the context of policies and whatnot. Sorry, my nose is I find it easier to use older poems because there's more stuff to read about it. Modern ones are harder to, because I have to use my own sort of interpretation, and that requires a bit more gymnastics, and which is fun. It's fun, but it also is more difficult because I like reading more about history. And actually, the irony is the further back you go in time, it doesn't feel that dissimilar. I mean, it's crazy, for example, today there's been 2 massive earthquakes in Turkey and Syria right now. And I was gobsmacked to hear that nearly 2,000, if not more, people have just perished, sadly. And thousands more injured. And you're like, earthquakes. The volcanic Pompeii thing happened. And we're still suffering Mother Earth's natural destruction. But I guess it's natural in the Earth's size. And we've not moved past it despite mankind's technological advances. So it's humbling when the further back in time you go, more relevant it is today. And you'll realize much of what he's saying resonates with many Black African American folks, but including myself, man. Like I many people of my ethnic origin just feel the same. Of course, the context is miles different in the US, but yeah. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts. And you know what? I might actually have a political channel, or at least do some reactions to some politics as well, because I think I maybe inform myself that way. But I'll see you next week. Bye. Also, just PS, I want to admire my beard, bro. I've been trimming it a bit, and I think today it looks absolutely stunning, if I say so myself. I deserve an extra like, for dedication of the beard. If you see my earlier videos, I've shaved it. I think I suit this style. Let me know.